Terminator Dark Fate has been making a splash for a couple of reasons. First, for the resurrection of the amazing Sarah Connor, with Linda Hamilton back to play her iconic role.
I hunt Terminators.
And secondly, because it has decided to erase all Terminator movies that happened after T2.
Can I, excuse me?
But while it has given the franchise a fresh start, Dark Fate is full of awesome throwbacks and Easter eggs. In the new movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger's long-running character Carl has settled down. He's got a surrogate family and even a regular, boring job. You may not have noticed the decal on the side of his van. It has the logo of his business, Carl's Draperies, as well as its phone number. In movies or TV shows, phone numbers usually have a 555 somewhere in them. This means that it's a fake number. So if you're watching a movie and you see a number with 3 5s in it, call it. In Terminator Dark Fate, Carl's Draperies has a real phone number that you can actually call. If you do, you'll be greeted by Arnold himself as Carl the Draper, who gives you a classic hasta la vista. The number is 888-512-1984. Go nuts.
I'll be back.
Everyone knows this line, even if you've avoided the Terminator movies like the plague and haven't seen a single one.
I'll be back. You've been back enough.
You'll have been unable to outrun the franchise's most famous line, I'll be back. Before Easter eggs and fan services were mandatory requirements for a movie franchise, Terminator was holding it down with this one. In every single Terminator film, somebody has said the line in some form, but this time, it's a little different. Instead of the Governor, it's Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor saying the line, but she twists it around a little. Instead of the robotic, thickly Austrian delivery of Schwarzenegger, Hamilton plays it way more casual as she saunters away from a huge explosion.
I'll be back.
This reversal is a fitting one. But Arnold still has to have his moment. When he's saying goodbye to his family, before going to sacrifice himself and his cushy life as a drapery installer to save the world, as he stands there, you can feel the phrase coming up. But again, they've twisted the classic quote ever so slightly. This time he says, I won't be back. Religion is everywhere nowadays. First Kanye, and now Terminator? Past Terminators have flirted with religious references, but in Dark Fate, a character is named after a chapter in the Bible, specifically Rev 9. The new, most powerful Terminator is named for chapter 9 of the Book of Revelations. There's a little quote from the chapter. When he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like the smoke from a gigantic furnace. The sun and sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss. If you think this sounds like the apocalyptic imagery of the Terminator, then listen to this other quote. On their heads they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like woman's hair, and their teeth were like lion's teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. Don't worry, no more biblical stuff. This Easter egg is just pointing to another Terminator movie, Salvation.
They know what you are even if you don't. Enough!
In that movie, it turned out that Marcus was not just a human or just a Terminator, but both. Sound familiar? In Dark Fate, Grace is the same. She started out as a human, but after getting stabbed, she had to be patched back together with some machine bits from Legion. Humans are born naked, and so are Terminators. Ever since the first film in the series, robots have lost their clothes in the frenzy of time travel. The newest Terminator, Rev 9, is a very advanced prototype from far in the future, but he still enters in the nude, plopping down in the thinking man pose. Some things never change. When Rev 9 inserts himself into the present, he rudely interrupts a family's backyard barbecue. This might be the least noticeable Easter egg of the whole movie, so don't feel bad for missing it. When Rev 9 comes crashing down, we see a wiener-turning, burger-flipping dad at the barbecue. That's Neil Corbould. Despite what you may think, he's not a past Terminator. He's the visual effects supervisor on Dark Fate. Now that he's got a chance to sharpen his acting chops, maybe next time he'll get the full role as Rev 10. The idea that robots will eventually replace humans has been a major theme of the Terminator movies since the very beginning, but Dark Fate might even go further into the subject than any other movie has before, and with more accuracy. While the main threat in Terminator has always been Skynet, their maniacal plan to establish a global artificial intelligence takeover that would eventually wipe out the human race entirely, the reality in Dark Fate is much more down to earth, but no less scary. In the beginning of the movie, we see Danny and her brother working in an automotive factory, in which humans are being replaced by intelligent machines. It might be quickly overshadowed by the murderous robots, but this idea isn't one that should be ignored. In fact, the replacing of human labor with machines is already happening all over the place. And it might just be the thing that we should be the most afraid of. Are you stressed out yet? Let's move on. When it was announced that Ed Furlong would be back to reprise his role as John Connor, fans were skeptical, and with good reason. Instead of having him appear as his older self, the people behind the movie thought it would be better to de-age him and his mom back to how they looked in 1995, when Terminator 2 came out.
No! Put the gun down now!
So far, this has been a breakout year for de-aging technology. It's been used in Gemini Man, The Irishman, and now Terminator. How did they do it? Apparently they used body doubles to shoot the scene, and then they just pasted on the face of Furlong, Hamilton, and Arnold. There is no shortage of catchphrases in the Terminator franchise, and they pop up from movie to movie to movie. Dark Fate is all about paying homage to this existing franchise, but updating it for a whole new world. One of the most well-known Terminator phrases, and no, it's not the old "come with me if you want to live." It was first uttered by Kyle Reese after he takes a shot at the T-800 in the Terminator.
Come with me if you want to live.
And then again in Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Come with me if you want to live.
The T-800 says the phrase to Sarah Connor, and with the urging of her son, she goes along with it. In Terminator Salvation, the new Kyle Reese says it once again, but this time to Marcus Wright.
Come with me if you want to live.
And finally, in Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines, John shouts,
You want to live? Come on!
to a terrified Kate Brewster, which, while it isn't the same, definitely counts. In Dark Fate, we get a slightly more urgent variation of the phrase, "Come with me, or you're dead in 30 seconds." Sarah Connor has spent her fair share of time as a wanted member of society, after, blowing up a building and causing all manner of destruction across Los Angeles. So much so that, when we meet her in Dark Fate, she has spent the last 28 years off the grid, living in hiding and mourning the loss of her son. But just because she was out of sight doesn't mean she was out of mind, and this is shown in the movie in the most awesome way possible. Sarah is actually given her own episode of America's Most Wanted. For those who didn't watch cable TV between the years of 1988 and 2012, America's Most Wanted was a true crime show about the most notorious criminals, and was all about bringing them to justice. Well, we're glad they never caught Sarah. It's a great bit of nostalgia to see her featured on one of the most well-known TV shows of all time. At one point, Sarah Connor MacGyvers what is called a Faraday cage out of a chip bag. A Faraday cage is a device used to block electromagnetic waves. Every microwave has a Faraday cage in it. When Sarah Connor suggests an empty bag of potato chips to block out the signal from a GPS, Carl is skeptical, but it really works, and is likely a reference to a real-life instance, where the stakes were far lower. A guy in Australia pulled the same stunt. His employer used a GPS to track his movements on the job, so he covered it with a chip bag and went to play golf. Dark Fate flirts with being a political movie. Although the film isn't going to go down in history as a paradigm-shifting protest film, it does almost address some things. There's a scene where Danny has to cross the Mexico-US border without a visa, and there's a fight in an ICE detention center. In this movie, the leader of the new resistance is a Mexican factory worker. They're almost, kinda, trying to say something here. What would Terminator be without sunglasses? In Dark Fate, we get the answer. Arnold leaves his iconic pair behind, going unshaded for his final foray as robot. This brings to mind, among many, many other scenes, the famous Bad to the Bone scene from Terminator 2, the one where Arnold gets a new leather outfit, a new motorcycle, and a new pair of shades from out of a biker's pocket. The way he picks those shades out and slowly puts them on, the scene in Dark Fate is the opposite. He almost keeps them on but realizes, wait, I'm a good guy now. When the Rev 9 descends from the sky to crash a family barbecue, he's got some familiar musical accompaniment. The song that's playing is Guitars and Cadillacs by Dwight Yoakam. It's the same song that plays when Arnold walks into the bar in Terminator 2, probably looking to bring back that good old Terminator 1 and 2 magic. Terminator 3 is like The Godfather 3. Fans don't exactly love it. The difference is that with the Terminator franchise, they continue to make them. What's even more surprising is that now, 3 movies later, they're doing callbacks to this universally unloved film. The reference comes at the end, when Danny takes out Grace's power core and dummies it into the Rev 9's head. If you felt like this movie was awfully familiar, you are not alone. It's a sequel, so this is to be expected, and a lot of Hollywood movies share some general structure. But some of these sequences are pretty much direct copies of past Terminator scenes. There's the chase scene on the Mexican highway, which is a reworking of the aqueduct scene from Terminator 2. In the first Terminator, Sarah and Kyle hide out in the Tiki Motel. In Dark Fate, Sarah, Danny, and Grace also find refuge in a rundown motel. Coincidence? Probably not. The fact that the two bad guys in two separate Terminator movies steal helicopters is, on the other hand, probably a coincidence.
Get out.
Right at the beginning of the movie, we see the tragic fate of John Connor. In the events that directly follow T2, we find Sarah and John relaxing on a quiet beach. Right as we think everything might work out for the mother and son, a T-101 walks up and takes out John right in front of Sarah's eyes. This devastating event is what catapults us right into the movie. But there's also more that meets the eye. A young actor named Jude Colley came on to body double for the young John Connor, but with the face of Ed Furlong superimposed on his own. And that's not the only clever CGI moment that you might have missed. A man named Brett Azar stood in for the young Arnold Schwarzenegger, a role which he'd already performed years before as Arnie's body double in Terminator Genesis.
You were never strong enough to defeat me.
Wait, no more Terminators?
Why?
What do you mean why? 'Cause you can't.
Why?
Even though this one is obvious, it may have taken time to sink in. At the end of the movie, there are no more Terminators left. Not one. Rev 9, the newest, most powerful Terminator, gets got by Danny, and then also Carl,
I'm going to help you protect the girl, because I choose to.
who pulls him down into one of those spikes. In the process of killing the Rev 9, the two other remaining Terminators are also terminated. Grace is only half robot, but she's robotic enough to have a power core inside her, which gets pulled out and used to kill the Rev 9. Having her robot half removed, Grace can't go on. That's two Terminators down. Arnold's most classic robot, the T-800, now known as Carl, is also no more. His death comes in the same scene as the other two, and is just as gruesome. In killing his robot cousin, he dies and gets his skin ripped off in the process.
I know now why you cry.
Man, that's a lot of detail in this movie. Have you had the chance to check it out yet? Were there any other sneaky moments that you noticed that we failed to mention? Let us know down in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with the latest videos from ScreenRant.